Today, we're looking at the Napoli. This ship is fun. I have had so much fun playing this ship. It is essentially all I've played over the entire weekend and, well, since it's been released, really. The ship is such a good time. And I want to tell you why I think you should get it for coal. I think this is one of the most unique ships in the entire game. But at the same time, I also think it's quite balanced. I don't think this is a overpowered ship at all. It has a very fun playstyle, and there's a lot of gimmicks, I guess you'd say, to this ship that make it so much fun. But it's not overpowered. It's got a long reload. It's got bad HE, bad dispersion. It's got a lot of downsides, but the fun comes when you can push in with this good armor, the secondaries that are sap, which is super cool, and I really want to see on the Italian battleships. Maybe they could change that around. I'd love to see these sap secondaries on an Italian BB, because they are really, really, really good. I think they're, if not the best secondaries in the game, they're close to it. And the main reason is the alpha. They do so much damage. It's actually insane how much damage, especially the 155mm guns do. We'll see that in a little bit. I thought I detonated a Daring later on in this game because of how much damage I got on him with just my secondaries. It's that insane. Something else that's really, really, really nice about the Napoli is the turning radius, as well as the concealment. So here, we easily fit between the torpedoes, not an issue there at all. But notice how we can just stop shooting for a couple seconds, and we go dark. That is so nice. It's so comfortable to play the Napoli because your concealment is so good, and even though you don't have the longest range, you can really make it work with this great concealment. And of course, you get fuel smoke just like all the other Italian tech tree cruisers, right? Here we're gonna see the HE be really, really bad. This is not a position you want to be in. Fighting an angled Stalingrad at range, that is not something you want to do. But at least he's going to have a tough time dealing with us as well, because the armor is amazing. You get the ability to shatter a ton of HE shells on your upper belt and deck. You're bouncing battleships. It's a great time. The issue, of course, is your upper bow is 25mm. So you're going to get overmatched by every battleship you fight. And that's okay if you're able to bait the enemy battleship into shooting your belt armor, right? I don't think you necessarily need a 27mm bow even on this thing. I think having 25 is just fine because your side plating is just so good. So you don't really ever want to go bow in directly to a battleship. It's not a bad choice, but you do really want to try and bait the enemy battleships into shooting your side. And I'll show you a little bit what that looks like later on. But this is a bad position we're in right here, so let's try and make something happen. We're gonna pop our planes soon, I think, to try and help our Elbing deal with the Yamato. Unfortunately, you don't get a spotter plane on this thing, you only get a fighter, so you may as well use it, especially in games without CVs, you may as well use it to spot over islands, right? Our Elbing could be getting rushed by this Yamato. It'd be nice for him to know what's going on there. So, yeah, don't play your ship like this. Don't try to get your Napoli into positions like this. What I would suggest you do is stop shooting when you're in scenarios like this, fighting a bow on Stalingrad. Stop shooting, move up, reposition with your amazing concealment, and actually really good top speed. This is a fast ship with pretty good maneuverability to go along with that concealment. The downside, of course, is the rudder shift time. It's around 12.5 seconds or so. And, well, this generally is fine because, of course, the maneuverability of your ship is based on both the rudder shift time as well as the turning radius. It's those two in combination. And because your turning radius is so good, you don't really notice it most of the time, but sometimes when dealing with torpedoes, you can notice your rudder shift is pretty bad, and it's hard to dodge torp sometimes. No hydro, of course, means that you really do gotta watch out when you're pushing in. This is a fun little play you can make sometimes. You can hop from island to island in your smoke, and even get your secondaries off on some of these battleships as you're going, and you don't get spotted. And if you can catch some flat broadsides, that kind of thing, or even reasonably well-angled battleships, you're gonna do some really, really, really good damage with this sap. The little ones only pen 26, so they have to hit the superstructure battleships, but the big 150s, they're penning 41, so you're going to do really good damage to most battleships. Now here is the moment where I realized the Napoli is basically the cruiser version of Apollo Emilio. This ship just loves to go in, even more than something like a Venezia. This is just a YOLO type of ship. Here we bait the Thunder, and maybe he probably should have known better to shoot our bow, but we baited him into shooting our belt armor, so we didn't take any damage there. And our sap is going to do so much to this Thunder as far as secondary damage. And pay attention to how the secondaries aim when they're targeted on a DD. Here's the rudder shift not helping us out very much to dodge a torpedo, like I said. But notice how far back the secondaries aim to start with, and it's only once I get his engine that those big 150s hit. And the next thing here, look at that Daring's HP, 6,000. The gearing gets a shot in, 5,000. That's it. And we take him out with those 5 secondary hits. Or 7, I guess. And then we ram the Thunder, and we cause a flooding, and he's going to flood out. But that Daring, that was not a detonation. That was the sap secondaries just nuking him that fast. It's around 5,000 damage or so, I believe. Pretty insane. Yeah, but we went on to lose this game, which is pretty sad. I was disappointed by that one, but still, a really, really good result. Probably one of my best games so far in this one. And we ended up with, well, you know, nearly carrying it out. Top score, Kraken, double strike, lots of secondary hits. And I really do think these sap secondaries are very good. Very, very, very good. They do so much damage throughout a game. Here we got 56,000 damage from our secondaries. And I'll be honest, I have been running a secondary build on this thing. I have been full in on the 3 million module, every upgrade you can possibly imagine, the captain skill that gives you better reload, and I've gone all in on these secondaries, trying to keep them alive more, and I actually don't think that's the build for you. I don't think that's the correct build on Napoli. It works, it can be fun, but I think the correct build on Napoli is actually range mod. And I'll explain why a little later, but for now, let's take a look at the armor a little closer. Look at what I'm doing here. This is what good concealment on a cruiser can get you into. It gets you into bad positions. Where you're stuck bow in to a Des Moines at 8 kilometers, there's an Aegir starting to flank you, and 2 battleships. And there's gonna be a little bit more coming even. And we're just stuck here because normally you'd think, oh, I'll just use my fuel smoke and I'll run away. There's the Talon. So we got a lot to deal with here. But I'll just use my fuel smoke, turn away, get that free turn in. But a Des Moines has radar, so you can't use your fuel smoke there. This would be the worst possible time to use a fuel smoke because I'm the one at least spotting these guys. I'm taking a ton of damage, but I'm at least spotting these guys. If I use my fuel smoke here, I stop spotting them, the Des Moines pops radar, and everybody gets to shoot me, and I don't get to see any of them. And my 2 battleships that are pretty far back don't even get shots, right? So don't pop your smoke in situations like this. Make sure you know where radars are, that kind of thing, and make the best use you possibly can out of your smokes. I'm trying to just reverse out of the Des Moines radar range. I know he can't push it forward anymore because our Kremlin and Veneto would probably take him out. Our Iowa's starting to flank him anyway, so he's in a rough spot as well, even though we're getting absolutely wrecked by their entire team. But as far as cruiser armor goes, this is pretty impressive. Not quite Petro levels of impressive, but we get something Petro doesn't. And that's the ability to just go dark whenever we want to. So that's what we're gonna do. We live barely, tanked 1 million potential damage there already, and we're gonna try and use this fuel smoke to turn around and get away. This Talon is hard charging in for his radar. Keep in mind that's around 12 kilometers, so I think I'm dead at this point. But that's a pretty good showcase of the armor of the Napoli, I think. This is a strong ship. This radar, I'm hoping, is just the Des Moines. We take a pot shot at him, he dies anyway, and we end up staying dark. And why is that? That's because our smoke firing is 8.7 kilometers. You have a better smoke fire range than the Venezia, and the Venezia has smaller guns than you. It's kind of silly, the smoke fire on this ship, how good it is. How is it 8.7 on these giant guns? It's a mystery to me, but it's very nice. It allows you to make plays like that, where you can get a shot off in your smoke without getting detected. It's really cool, and if you run the full secondary build, you get that 8.7 to 9.2 window there, where you can have all your secondary shooting, and you can shoot your main guns, and you won't get detected. So there's some pretty fun plays you can make that way if you have good information on where the entire enemy team is. Here is a tough spot. I'm really hoping my team is going to shoot the Talon, deter him, right? I mean, he gets overmatched massively by the Kremlin. The Veneto can just shoot some sap. I'm really trying to live here. Trying not to use the border as much as possible, because that's going to slow us down. And I also just don't like using the border. It seems like I don't know, it just seems too cheesy, right? Like, Wargaming really needs to nerf how good the border is for people. But I'm trying to get away at this point. Our concealment's 10.3, so we're almost able to get out of detection range of the Talon. They get the fire, but we have a repair, and look at that, we're on 3,000 HP. A couple blind shots coming in yet. Trying to dodge those, but I think we're gonna be okay somehow. And we live that, somehow. I don't know how, but we did live that. So Napoli is surprisingly forgiving and surprisingly tanky. Something you should know, though, that's only well angled. This ship does have a turtleback with a 30mm side on it, so you'd think it would do well against anything with smaller caliber than 430mm, right? Well, no, the turtleback actually doesn't work all that well. I myself have citadeled tons of Napolis in my Napoli, and battleship shells hurt even more. The torpedoes, of course, are a really nice zone denial type threat. They're not fast, they don't hit particularly hard, but they have a long range and a pretty good cooldown, so you really should be just launching them whenever you see somebody that could potentially be hit by them. Or just throw them into gaps you think maybe a DD will come through, throw them through a capture zone, that kind of thing. You get a ton of range on them to stealth torp, so you may as well just be launching them all the time. Here's a really cool play you can make if you're on low HP, like I am in this one, and you've made some mistakes. You can actually use your smoke to push in, get your secondaries shooting at someone, and then he can't shoot back at us. It's really quite wonderful. And since we're staying outside that 8.7 kilometer range, we can shoot him and we won't get detected. I feel like Napoli maybe should have had a bigger smoke fire range. I don't think this ship needs nerfs, to be very clear. I do much worse in this ship than I do in Venezia, but I think maybe 8.7's a little bit too good on the smoke fire. Maybe they could have buffed something else about the ship and maybe nerfed that side. That seems a little bit too strong, to me at least. But regardless, that's a small little complaint. The really interesting thing is the AA seems bad, but I've actually been able to shoot down quite a few planes as CVs have come after me. And, well, they always get their first drop through. I mean, we're able to shoot down reasonably well these planes, and he actually can't even get a second drop in on us. So I don't know if that's down to me just getting lucky and CV players just trying to eat all the flack they possibly can, but in my experience, it's not bad AA. Not as bad as I would have thought looking at the range, especially. Seeing that 4.6 kilometer AA range is really, really, really painful. You do, however, get the nice fuel smoke, so if you are alone and you really do need to keep the CV from dropping you, you can pop your fuel smoke to go dark, and then you do still need to maneuver because some of the best CV players on the planet are able to drop you through your smoke. They perfected that throughout the last clan battle season, where a lot of people ran Christopher Colombo's, Venezia's, and the CV players got really good at dropping people who were using a fuel smoke. So do be mindful of that, but most of the people you're going to see in a CV won't be able to do that. So the fuel smoke is sort of a way to deal with the CV. Not all of them, but some of them. I was trying here to citadel this Montana. I believe I have the pen for it, I thought. But the dispersion is not that amazing, so we're not quite able to do it. And, well, I think the rudder shift here is actually what's going to come back and bite me. Try and turn away from these torpedoes, and while we do get angled in time because of our amazing turning radius, it's the rudder shift time. I'm not actually able to control my position well enough just to dodge these. So we end up clipping one, and we go down. I did lose a lot of games in this ship. I want to note that this ship is not a good carry ship at all. Not at all. It's fun to play. I enjoy it a ton, but carrying out games, you really want, at least for cruisers, you want something with radar, or maybe even a Venezia being able to crush destroyers, that kind of thing. This is not a high battle impact ship, but it's a fun ship to play. Now, you're looking at that last shot and thinking, but bad dispersion, you just got a Citadel on that Buffalo at really far range. That doesn't quite make sense. And here you're shooting at a broadside Venezia at 16 kilometers, and you get a triple Citadel? That doesn't sound like bad dispersion at all. And then you look at the map and see 18.9 kilometers range. That's not quite right. Well, range mod makes the dispersion so much better on this ship. It's actually crazy. I want to note in this game as well, it's not just range mod that I switched to. I switched to the dispersion module. So only 8 kilometer range secondaries, which is still pretty good. But the important thing is we get that extra really, really nice dispersion on our main guns. And wow, does it actually make the ship really nice to play at most ranges. I don't know why my crosshair is doing this in the replay. This, with torpedoes, this crosshair doesn't do this in the normal game. For whatever reason, the replay system makes the crosshair look like that. I apologize, it doesn't look very good. But the consistency of these guns is dramatically better with range mod applied. And so much so, I'm confident enough to shoot at a broadside cruiser and feel like I'm gonna actually do a ton of damage to him. Before, I was feeling like, maybe I'll get a Citadel or two. I mean, you can just look at some of the dispersion in the earlier parts of this video and know that it was really, really not good. That was a main weakness of the Napoli. Felt like you had to get up close and get those secondaries active to get some really good damage out of this ship. But using range mod, it actually works pretty well. Here's a really fun little play you can do in any of the Italian ships with a fuel smoke, by the way. It's something that some friends have coined as robbing the bank. And what does that mean? It means that you go to the enemy's home cap, or a cap, but it was mainly used in clan battles where you'd go to the enemy's home cap, you'd get your fuel smoke on likely your Venezia, and you'd go use your fuel smoke, maneuver around in the enemy's cap to cap it, and then you'd get out of there. So hence robbing the bank. And that's what we're doing here. It's a really funny way to get map control, and something that not a lot of ships in this game can do. Most other cruisers would not be able to do this. Even ones that have smoke, they're not able to do this nearly as well because you get a limited range on that smoke, and people can blind fire it pretty easily. It's kind of hard to blind fire some of these Italian cruiser smoke. So we actually end up able to cap this zone, even with a Venezia 12 kilometers away. I believe there's a destroyer around who's spotting us, but that's a fun little play you can mix in every once in a while if you want to go for it. I will say it doesn't work all the time, but it is a ton of fun to try and pull off. Now, at the end of this game, I end up fighting 2 Venezias, and, well, this Amagi's probably going to go down here pretty quickly, but it's 2 Venezias that have been kiting and running to the back of the map. And I'll be honest, I didn't actually think about how good the armor is on this ship, but the upper belt is 60 millimeters of armor. And that means you're bouncing Venezia sap, or shattering it, I should say. You're shattering Venezia sap. So they actually have a really, really, really hard time killing you. And that's something, of course, that Venezias are not used to. Most ships in the game have, at best, I mean, even 50 millimeters of armor. Petro has 50 millimeter upper belt, and Venezia can get through that. But this Napoli thing, they have a really, really, really hard time dealing with this. So you can actually push some of these, some of the tech tree Italian cruisers and do a really, really good job of taking them out. Of course, with the improved dispersion of range mod and dispersion module, getting Citadels is not an issue. We're already up to 9, we might even get even more. Did you see where his turrets were turned there, that Venezia? You might need to go back. I didn't actually do a good job of pointing it out at the moment. But you notice that Venezia had his turrets turned way too far in front of me to be where he was aiming for his main guns. That means he's very obviously torping at me, right? Because the main guns follow wherever your cursor is, even when you are in torpedo view, assuming you haven't locked your guns on a direction. So that's a really easy way to know if a ship is torping you. You look at, if you can't see the torp, sometimes you're close enough that you can see the torpedo tubes and see where they're looking, but just look at where the main guns are pointing, or they're starting to point. That's a really great indicator of when somebody's torping. And then when the guns shift back onto your ship, then you know they're done torping, and that's the time you should be maneuvering. Of course, this only works when the ship is spotted, right? You're not able to do that against a stealth DD, but it's an interesting play, an interesting way to maybe tell how or where a ship is going to be torping at you. These Venezias have really struggled. Look at my HP still. We have barely lost HP to these Venezias, and we haven't been crushing them in return because we have AP that tends to bounce if they angle correctly, and our HE is really bad. I haven't really talked about that, but you've seen mostly AP in this video for a reason. The HE has a very low fire chance, you have a pretty long reload, and it's just not the best HE. The alpha's not bad, but with the poor dispersion, it's hard to snipe superstructures of battleships all the time, so you might have okay luck with it, but I would suggest sticking with AP a lot of the time. I've had some shocking games where the AP's done 5,000 to 8,000 damage into angled battleship superstructures even. I believe I was fighting a Bismarck, and he turned away, and I knocked one of his turrets out, one of his rear turrets. He was completely angled away from me, and I still did like 6,000 damage through a superstructure. Pretty insane. Pretty insane stuff there. And of course, making good use of our fuel smoke to turn out, get outside of the Kurfürst's Hydro if he had it up. He obviously didn't really have it up because we got some torps on him. And we finish him off there. 191k damage and 2 million potential damage. We still had half our health and a heal left. This ship is fun to play. I have really enjoyed my time with it. And just to speak a little bit about what I said at the beginning of the video, this is a ship you should buy for coal. The reason I say that is this ship is unique, it's fun, it's not overpowered, and it's a very different playstyle than anything else in the game. It plays like almost nothing else, and for my money, or I shouldn't say money because for whatever reason Wargaming is selling this for real money, but for my coal, for my steel, that's what I'm looking for. The coal and steel you earn in this game, it's not, well, the coal's not too hard to get, you just kind of play, but steel is really hard to get for a lot of players, and you don't want a ship that is going to be something you're not going to play very much. So that's something to consider, is how much you're going to play the ship. But for me personally, I have so many tech tree ships already at this point, and I'm sure a lot of you have a lot of ships in this game already, because this game's been out for a long time. I'm looking for things that are unique. I'm looking for things that are going to be interesting when it comes to my steel, my coal purchases. And I think the Napoli is one of the most unique ships to come out of the Wargaming premium ship office in a long time. Paulo Emilio is definitely up there, but unfortunately that's for that horrible research bureau that takes ages to do and get. So I haven't got the Paulo yet, but I know I'd probably enjoy it since I enjoy the Napoli so much. But yeah, I definitely recommend this ship. It's a lot of fun, and I think the majority of people would enjoy it. Maybe not if you're not as interested in secondaries, but for me personally, I love secondaries and brawling, so I love this ship. So as promised, here is the reason range mod works on the Petro, surprisingly enough, as much of a meme as range mod Petro is, as well as Napoli. It's these weird dispersion area graphs, and it really is from the vertical dispersion. You can see how odd these two look. The whatever this color is, I guess burgundy? Is that the right color? I don't know, reddish brown. And blue for the Napoli. Petro, Napoli. Yeah, it is a very, 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 very weird dispersion curve, especially compared to something like Des Moines. You see how Des Moines just kind of naturally goes up and then slowly comes back down as the shelf light time goes for longer. And horizontal dispersion, they're basically the same for everybody as well. So the weird thing happens when you put range mod on, right? And that's because some of these odd jumps up and down actually get moved farther out. And it's this really lowest point here for the Napoli as well as Petro, that the farther you move that out, that means the better your dispersion is at longer range. So this is just the normal vertical dispersion. And then here we go. So if you're gonna take range mod, this is what it does to the vertical dispersion. It just moves it farther out. Just moves it farther out. Here's what happens to the vertical. This low point gets even lower when you take range mod on Napoli. This is maximum, by the way. These upper ones are maximum, and these lower ones are probably more likely what you're gonna see, but the maximum ones show the best or the most extreme difference, and that's where you're gonna notice these changes. And this doesn't happen for something like a Des Moines or any normal cruiser because their dispersion doesn't look like this, right? So you can see just how this works, right? You get basically the same normal dispersion for a long distance, but then it extends, right? Your dispersion extends for longer, and then it gradually ticks up, right? It is a weird phenomenon, but this is what it is. This is why it works so well, and I guess that means I'm recommending Napoli. Yeah. Thanks to Shiny Trash Can and for making, especially this one, just labeling things a little bit for me. And then as well as Adalbert Schneider. If you know him, he's in Twitch chats a lot. He's the one going around telling everybody to run range mod on their Petro and their Napoli. I told him I'd call him out. So there it is. There it is. That's why you got to do it. It's these weird dispersion tables that look like that. I have no idea why they're like that, but because of the random way Wargaming has made these ships, range mod just works. So that's what I'm going to be running, because having that accuracy at range is a huge boost to how good this ship is. And the secondaries are still decent. Still get 8 kilometer range secondaries, and they're still quite accurate. You're only missing that extra 20% or so from the upgrade. So I do run top grade gunner. We are trying to get in secondary range, and the extra reload time on your main guns and close range brawls, you tend to activate this quite a lot. I'm running survivability expert. I think it is quite useful because you just get that extra bit of HP, you get more healing out of your ship. It just makes your ship just that little bit tankier. Adrenaline rush, trying to help with that reload, of course. Consumables enhancement, this gives you extra time on that fuel smoke. I tend to use this as a go-between, right? Get myself from one island to another, or I use it to turn out, or I use it to disengage, or I use it aggressively. You know, you saw that in all these clips. I used it in a lot of different ways. It gives you a very flexible ship to play. Gun feeder, of course, Sansonetti is amazing on this ship, just like he is on every Italian ship. Sansonetti is so good, letting you swap between shells faster, and more importantly, giving you these amazing buffs, right? You get Confederate, 15% reload. You get a kill, 8% range. And keep in mind, range makes your ship more accurate. So you activate the far reach talent, well, you get better dispersion and more range. It's pretty amazing how that works. So you also get extra consumables if you hit things 100 times with your main battery, which is a little harder in Napoli, but in Venezia, it's very easy to do. So Sansonetti is great on these cruisers. He's also great on Colombo. He's just great. Sansonetti's awesome. And here's what I'm running as far as my upgrades. I did spend a lot of time with Auxiliary Armaments Mod 1, trying to keep my secondaries alive, but I found my main guns were getting knocked out so often. So now that I've switched to Main Armaments Mod 1, it's so much better. Yeah, your AA is going to get knocked off sooner and your secondaries as well, but I think it's just more important to keep your main guns alive on this ship. On some other ships, I do tend to take auxiliary armaments because it's not very often your main guns get taken out, but on this thing, definitely run main armaments mod 1. Damage control system mod 1, your engine and rudder don't get knocked out too often, and if they do, it's likely... Oh, we just got disconnected. That's kind of funny. Those of you that have been watching my streams will know that I'm actually using Starlink now for my internet. And that's why the quality has somewhat gone up. But that usually doesn't affect YouTube videos. And, well, here we are. So basically what happens is Starlink's in beta. And so there's going to be some downtimes every once in a while. We don't have any obstructions, so it is just those beta downtimes. And they really don't happen all that often. But every once in a while you get just enough of an obstruction, or not an obstruction, but this beta downtime, and you're kicked out of the game, which is a little unfortunate. But the majority of the time, you just get this kind of huge lag spike, and then it comes back just normal. You don't even get kicked out of matches, right? But here we are back in. That was kind of funny. We looked at the commander already and equipment. So this aiming systems, I think that's a pretty good one to go with. You miss, I guess, 15% on your secondaries as far as range and accuracy, because aiming systems mod 1 does include some secondary battery firing range and accuracy. But I do think it's worth running aiming systems as well as the range mod. You could mess around with maybe running secondaries as well as range mod, but both of them together give you a really nice tight dispersion. I am running propulsion mod. I did start with running steering gears, but I thought for most situations, the 750 meter turning radius would carry me through, and the 12.5 second rudder shift wouldn't hurt me so bad. But there was a couple of situations there that you saw, like with those CV torps, where I would have loved to have steering gears. But prop mod is really nice for when you're kind of ducking in and out behind islands, that kind of thing, trying to play around them, get your secondaries, take 1v1s. I think overall prop mod is just that little bit more useful. And then range mod, there it is, range mod. I think it might even be better than main battery. It's definitely better than auxiliary armaments. It's good, surprisingly so. I am running concealment because that is just that 10.3 really nice, comfortable concealment. With range mod, you get 18.9 kilometer range. It's not even that huge for a tier 10 cruiser. So not only does it give you better dispersion, because the weird way Wargaming programmed this, it does make the ship more comfortable to play for a lot more players. Just know that your goal with this ship is definitely to push in. You want to push. Don't just use that range and sit at the back, okay? Because this ship does get better the closer range you get. It's a monster. It's the cruiser Paolo Emilio, and I think you should get it for coal. You can get this for real money. And that's crazy, because you're going to see a lot of noobs in tier 10 with this, or I just think this sets a horrible precedent. And I don't think we need tier 10 premiums for real money. Even tier 9 premiums, I don't think we should be able to spend real money on. I think higher tier, you should have to at least play the game a bit to play at those tiers. I think that might result in some better games, but as it is, it's pretty easy to get to tier 10. You can do it in a couple hundred games or less if you're really good and know how to grind things very well. But I don't know. Don't buy this for real money, please. Just don't. Buy it for the coal if you've got it. It's probably going to be in the armory for quite a while as coal. They don't tend to remove them very quickly, especially because I don't think the ship is that overpowered. It's not like an Alaska or a Georgia or a Thunder that needs to get taken out because it's too strong, or too popular is how Wargaming says it, but it's too strong. We all know they're overpowered. This thing, I think it'll stay for a long time. So save your coal and get yourself a nice, unique, fun to play premium that you don't have to spend real money on. So that's my thoughts on the Napoli. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have a great day.